We know that solo and group travelers are distinctly different traveler segments, with each segment bringing along distinct sets of characteristics, traveler preferences, etc. Today on Lighthouse Quick Takes, I want to look at what I will refer to as the intent versus behavior gap. And what I want to do is look at how length of stays differ between what travelers are searching for versus what they ultimately end up booking. And I want to do that for both the solo and group traveler segments, okay? Fascinating stuff. And we are going to look at data from Bench Direct, a product from the hotels network, which is now part of Lighthouse. So, look at this slide. We examined two markets that are known to attract these distinct segments: Tokyo, which is a huge market for solo travelers, and Cancun, which is of course a market with a huge draw for group travelers. And what we did was compare the length of stay that solo travelers to Tokyo searched for versus what those travelers actually ended up booking. And we did the same thing for group travelers to Cancun. Again, comparing what trip length they searched for versus what trip length they ended up booking. And what do we see? In Tokyo, the delta between what solo travelers search for versus what they book was only a 0.2 day difference, roughly a 5% drop from length of stay at search to length of stay at booking. And this makes sense. They're traveling solo. They more or less know what they want pretty early on in the booking journey. Conversely, in Cancun, the group search behavior shows a much steeper drop when comparing searches versus actual bookings, nearly a 14% decrease in length of stay at search versus actually booked, which is nearly triple what we saw for solo travelers to Tokyo. This tells us that groups are dreaming big during the search phase, but then the reality of budgets or coordinating schedules forces them to trim an average of more than half a day off their stay before they hit book. So, what are the takeaways here? Tools like this are important to help understand who is searching, what they're searching for, and how that search behavior, the intent, may ultimately translate into actual commitment. Search data is an excellent indicator of general demand, but the key is putting it into context. Search data captures aspirational trip planning, while booking data reflects real-world constraints. When you see longer lengths of stay in search, especially from group-heavy markets, don't assume those durations will materialize. In many markets, these average search durations perhaps represent more of an upper limit in terms of the length of stay for these group travelers. But this data can definitely be leveraged to create segment-specific pricing to ultimately try to convert those searches into actual bookings. Once you know who is searching for your market and perhaps their aspirational length of stay, think about how you might price or market to that traveler to capture that demand as close to that aspirational length of stay as possible. So remember, search shows ambition, booking shows reality, and revenue managers who recognize that gap, especially across traveler segments, can align pricing and marketing strategies to how guests actually behave, not just how they initially dream. Thanks as always for tuning in today. My name is Blake Ryder, and we will see you next time on Lighthouse Quick Takes.